Um, I got this comment that needs a reply, or I at least feel like it needs a reply. And it was a comment about something I had said online, where I had said that basically the reason I play Bold Action is to win. I don't really care for the Second World War's history and stuff. And that's absolutely true. So let me just read the comment for you guys. I'll not show it because I don't have it. Like, I don't want to out anyone. And then I'll give a full response, sort of. And I don't know if this is for anyone's benefit, but at least it's how I process and think about things. So the comment said, "You say you only play to win. Does that mean you would play Bold Action regardless of setting? For instance, if they replaced World War II with Star Wars, or Renaissance, or Cowboys versus Native Americans, or random colored cubes?" Um, yes, would be the short answer. The the long answer is that there are quite a few things about playing miniature war games with miniatures, that I quite enjoy. But and I'll show you some of the things that I enjoy, and some of the things that, like, my history of getting to this point. So I started buying miniatures in the 1980s, and that was mostly for small role playing games. I started building a Warhammer army in the 1980s. I didn't really play a lot of games of Warhammer. It never really appealed to me. There was something off with the rules, but the idea of of taking miniatures and doing like miniature worlds and building miniature worlds and using them for games really appealed to me. I had at that point already, I was really into board games as well. I played role playing games, still do, and the the board games sort of led me into this idea of tabletop wargaming. Um, and then I tried 40k, and I will show you where 40k took me, because I will just do like this. I'll show you some of my miniatures, old miniatures. Right. So this is some of my miniatures, my science fiction stuff. Um, I have 3 Eldar on jet bike here. I don't use these. I haven't had these out of the box, and I can't remember in how long. I still own them. I would never sell a miniature that I painted. Um, but this is where 40k took me. It took me into Eldar. I immediately fell in love with Eldar. I don't know why. It was something about that doomed backstory of the Eldar. Um, and then I started playing games, and I figured out that you could play games in order to win, not just to tell a story, which was what I was doing with tabletop role playing games, but to win, which is what I was doing with board games, and I love that. That was really cool, and I built the strongest, the best army that I could, um, and a lot of my ideas about play style and um, the different aspects of why you play games, all of that comes from that period of my life. But some things messed that up. One of the main things was new editions came out, new codexes came out, and pay to win and codex creep is a curse of all things GW. So I stopped doing that, and my friend Michael then got me into Star Wars X Wing. So I did that for a while. Let me show you. my minis just for that. Again, something that hasn't been out the box for quite a while. These were my Ninja Turtles. They are, by the way, custom paint job. Even though the miniatures for Star Wars X-Wing come painted, you buy them painted in the box. This was my Green Squadron of 4. And I painted, because they were Green Squadron, I painted them green, and I called them my Ninja Turtles because they're small and green and will mess you up, right? So I played that for quite a while. But again, the problem with X-Wing, as was the case with 40k, was it was pay to win. You had to keep up with the latest releases. You had to keep up with the newest editions. And there was a very marked, not codex creep, but edition creep. Like every time a new ship came out, that ship immediately became the best thing ever, and it more or less invalidated you running anything else before. Or you had to have that one card that was in that edition in order to play whatever you were playing. So the focus wasn't on, actually being good at something. It was you paying to win. And I don't like that. I don't like that. That was a period where I started figuring out why I had quit 40k, why I was quitting X-Wing. It was because you were paying to win. The codex creep was so much that you had to pay in order to keep up. Otherwise, you'd just be left behind, and you had no chance. And in that period, I quit competitive gaming. For a couple of years, until I got lured in by some beautiful minis, and I'll show you that one. And this was Infinity the game. So this is a couple of my Infinity miniatures. For Infinity, you don't need most games you need 8 to 12 minis, but I have about 60. And it was because I could finally use... I had collected a lot of minis. I love collecting minis. I love collecting them. I love painting them. So I was like... I immediately bought myself silly on miniatures. And one of the things that I liked was I could sort of use whatever sci-fi miniatures I liked with this game. It was a different game. It had very different mechanics. It used D20s. It was in all respects, it felt almost like a role-playing game more than a war game, but at the same time, you could go to competitions, and I did. And I got beaten the shit out of me because I wasn't... The game was simply too complex in many respects. It is a complex game. I love it for its complexity, but for me, for tournament play, it's too complex. But that was where I started. These 3 games: Infinity the game, Warhammer 40k, and X-Wing. That was the start of my competitive journey, and that taught me that I actually like the competition of it. I like the trying to figure out how to win. That part I really liked. And back when I was playing 40k and X-Wing, me and Michael said to each other, yeah, we're going to be world champions. Every time we went to a tournament, we're like, we're going to be world champions. We never became anything great in those games. But something of that stuck with me. The idea that I felt like if I could just find the right game that had the right level of complexity, that had the right mechanics, where I could start, where I could wrap my head around it. Like, for a long while, my little brother, Klaus, he was living off playing poker. He was really good at playing poker, and he's a really intelligent guy. He's been on several game shows for intelligence and stuff, and he may be smarter than me, but, I still beat him at board games sometimes. Because both of us love that puzzling out of stuff, and that's really a huge driver for me. During all that time where I was playing 40k, X-Wing, and Infinity, I was also doing this. Let me show you this. This is a bit of my collection of historical armies. I have many more than these, by the way. These were just the ones where I had something nicely painted. Um, so one of the first historical armies I bought was a pike and musket army. I have a huge collection of these. They're not fully painted, and they've been sitting in a box for the last 10 years. I haven't really had them on the table, but I love them. Um, the Three Musketeers and all that stuff. That was I freaking love that. So that was what an early army I got. I also medieval armies, right? I have a huge medieval army, late medieval army, War of the Roses style medieval army. Mostly Perry miniatures. Love my Perry miniatures. I also bought that very early on, and because you just gotta, I got into collecting a bit of Napoleonics. Napoleonics has always been like the colors, the uniforms, Napoleon himself, the tactics of that period. So I own three Napoleonic armies. I have a Russian one, I have a French one, and I have a Bavarian one. So all of that as well. Most of it is not something where they get to the game board very often, but I always have intention that they should. Lately, I've been getting into other kinds of stuff as well. Right now, I am building a an American Civil War Confederate army. Because at the club we have we challenge each other. Let's do some ACV. So we're doing that. At the same time, I've also gotten into a bit of ancients. I'm using the rule set by Little Wars TV. We're playing Rome versus Carthage. I have a huge Carthaginian army, which I'm still painting. I have half of it painted, along with some Gauls and some Iberians and some Greeks, allies for my Carthaginians, right? Um, so I have some Gauls up here. Possibly you can recognize these three dudes from somewhere. Let me know in the comments. So I really enjoy collecting different armies. Up here I have some Arabs for Saga. These are converted Lord of the Rings figures that I'm converting to look more historical, because I got a good deal on those. I also have over here my Norman slash Vikings for Saga as well. I've yet to play my first game of Saga, but you know, I've collected huge armies for them. Here I have this very pretty Reconquest Knights, also Saga Knight. And you might sit here, look at these, and say, well, Bo actually knows how to paint, right? At least some of it. I'm really proud of some of that because it looks really good. It's well painted. Yeah, I do know how to paint. Now, why don't I paint my Brits nicely then for bold action? Because everything I've shown you, all my historical armies are 1865 and earlier, right? Basically, I'm mostly getting into American Civil War because my club is. I would be perfectly happy to stop my military history in 1815. Waterloo and before. That's me. I'm not sure why. I've never actually been sure why. It's something to do with what fascinates me. World War II, World War One, and modern wars really don't. Although I am a military historian, I do know quite a lot about war. I follow the Ukraine war obsessively. It's not something that I enjoy, modern wars. It's not something where and it's not because it feels wrong. Like all you guys who are veterans and like playing bold action because you are veterans. It's what got you into that. Perfectly fine. I have nothing against that. It's just not me. Um, I enjoy the heroics, I think, of warfare, and I think with modern war, a lot of the romanticism that we have, which is never what war really was, I know, but the romanticism of what we have is, I think, it's gone. It's gritty, it's dark, and I don't really enjoy gritty and dark. You might also see that in my fantasy armies, right? I picked Eldar because I could paint it in beautiful blue colors, right? Not gritty. Um, my X-wing fighters were bright greens and yellows, not gritty. My Infinity the game has a sort of anime aesthetics. It's pretty. It's not gritty at all. So I don't especially enjoy the grittiness, the darkness, the I go to places, concentration camp places, and I sort of feel like crying, not studying the history of it. That's me. That's who I am. That's my relationship to World War I, World War II, and modern wars. I don't enjoy them as a topic of study. So why did I get into bold action? Well, there are a couple reasons. One of them sits right behind me. Here we go. It's this one. The game mechanics, maybe especially of the order dice. The first time I tried bold action, again, it was my friend Michael who said, I'll give you a test game of this, and you might enjoy this. It sort of feels like 40k, but differently, and just World War II. And I was like, World War II, I'm not a fan, but I'll try it. And I immediately fell in love with the mechanics of the game. I freaking love the mechanics of bold action. And at the same time, it felt like a game that was fairly well balanced. A man was a man with a rifle. You didn't have all those heroes that you did in 40k that would change everything up. You didn't have those overpowered combos. Even things that were a little overpowered weren't that massive that you could win the game in one turn, which you could in some games of 40k. So the mechanics of the game, the balance, that was one thing that really drew me. And unfortunately, it's one of the things that also might at some point make me quit the game. If that balance and if that mechanic becomes not enjoyable for me, that is when I'll quit bold action, if ever I do. So that's the first thing. What other things do I enjoy about it? Well, I do paint stuff, but very rarely do I bother to give as good paint jobs as I did for this Cyclops here to my bold action stuff. I did for one army, and that was my Partisans, and that was because I did it as a huge project. And I did something else that I enjoyed, that I do enjoy, about hobbying. And this includes bold action, for bold action, by the way. I kit bashed most of that army. This is one of my kit bashes for my Brits, by the way. And I figured out I really enjoy kit bashing. So right now I have huge piles of sprues everywhere in my game room. I've got boxes and boxes of different stuff that I'll pull out and cut a little bit off every time I do a hobby project, because I figured out kit bashing is fun. I love it. I really, really like kit bashing. That's something that I learned from Warlord Games and from playing around with their plastic miniatures. that taught me. It's a new enjoyment that I have, and it's something that I learned from playing World War Two. I also learned that I really enjoy making terrain. This is one of my improvised ruin builds. It was made with excess MDF sprues from other terrain builds. I really enjoy this. There's something about the creative process of kit bashing and building terrain that I really like. Who knew? So there are other things that I do enjoy, but the main thing for me that I enjoy is still the mechanics of the game. So would I play Bold Action if it was set in Star Wars? Maybe. I'll definitely try Star Wars Legion at some point, and I've heard that that is basically Bold Action in Star Wars. I'll definitely try that at some point, but I'm not sure that I mentally can just take on another game, and I would want to play that competition style as well. So I don't think I'll go into Star Wars Legion. Let me try out the game and get back to you. Would I play it if it was Renaissance with pike and musket? Oh my god, yes! Oh, I would play that so much. Would I play it if it was Cowboys and Indians, Cowboys and Natives? Yeah, ish. I have played Blood and Plunder a bit, and I do own a small army for Blood and Plunder, which is basically, pirates, natives, and I think they're coming out with a cowboy version of it as well. And while it was cool to get some of those minis on the table, it was cool to get some of pirates. Who doesn't love pirates? On the table, the mechanics of it didn't really appeal to me that much. Well, though they did have some cool ones, but I just it wasn't the same. Would I play it if it was medieval? Knights and stuff. Oh, yes. Definitely. But I would want it to be competitive. I would want it to not be, like just... most historical games are non-competitive games. They're recreations. And I would want there to be an elegant mechanic where you can finish a game in 2, maybe 3 hours, and you get a competitive result, like where you can do tournament stuff with it. But if you could do that with medievals, with my knights, oh man, would I want to play that. I just don't want it to be Warhammer. I just don't want the heroes to be the characters that I don't want dragons to be stomping my face in. I want a man with a spear to be important. And that is true for Bold Action. That is true for Bold Action. That's why I play it. But would I play it if it was just colored cubes? No, I don't think I would. Because I do, as I said, enjoy the kit bashing. I am a military historian. I know quite a lot about the military history, so it needs to be believable at least. I do enjoy making terrain. I enjoy the spectacle of the visual of this. I sometimes enjoy painting it as well, although not as much. Bold Action, my Brits are not well painted. My partisans are. My partisans are beautifully painted. Why? I think that's because I'm red-green colorblind, and that means that everything that's not in like other bright colors, it doesn't appeal to me. Yellows and muted greens, no. That looks like brown everything to me. So yeah, I do enjoy other stuff of the hobby, which means that miniature games is it for me. Colored cubes? No, I don't think so. Though I would happily play a board game and try to win that one. I never play a board game where I don't try to win it. Even with the family, I'm famous for this. My kids, all through their childhoods, were like, Dad? No, he always plays to win. And I do that because it makes them better. It makes me better. It makes everyone better. It's the most enjoyable feeling when you win because you've earned it, not because your dad sort of let you win. That's not cool. So yeah, that was a bit of a rant. Thank you for the comment. So ranting about myself may be one of the favorite things, though. Anywho, I don't know if any one of you could use this for anything, but I could. So see you next video. Cheers.